Okay, class. I'm just going to give you a quick run through of the different types of point of view. And remember, point of view is who is telling the story. Okay, the vantage point from which the story is told determines how much we as the readers know about the characters. There are 3 point of views that you will see in fiction. The first of which we've already talked about, first person. Okay, you have even more information than this on the chart on the first page of the packet I gave you that has the story that you're reading for homework today, By the Waters of Babylon. The easiest thing to remember about first person is this right here, that when you're reading the story, you're going to see the words I, me, we, us, our. Okay, those indicate that the narrator is a character in the story, and that the only information we're getting is from that character. That character knows their own thoughts, their own feelings, and that's the only information we get. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. The thing that I want to focus on is the other 2 types of point of view, and that is your third person limited and your third person omniscient. Okay, technically there is a second person point of view, but that is not something you see in fiction. It is simply instructions. You need to do this. When you make this recipe, you're going to use flour, sugar, whatever. Okay, those are your instructions, and that is second person point of view. But in fiction, our 3 points of view are first person, third person limited, and third person omniscient. Okay, think about if you've heard the word omniscient before. Okay, and if you have, take a moment and think about what the differences might be between third person limited and third person omniscient. Think about that for a minute. Let's start with third person limited. In both third person point of views, the narrator does not participate in the action of the story and does not refer to himself or herself. These are your stories where you are just getting information from some unknown source. You don't have I, you don't have me. It's just someone telling you what happens to the characters using their names. You don't know anything about the narrator. Where the 2 differ, okay, in third person limited, the narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of only one character. Or in other words, their knowledge base is limited to one character. However, the readers are still able to maintain some emotional distance from the character. Okay, what do I mean by emotional distance? An example of third person limited, let's say you're reading a story. Here you go. You have Sally and Teresa were best friends until Teresa moved away. Teresa never called, texted, or visited Sally. It broke Sally's heart. That is limited because we only know how Sally feels. Sally's heart was broken. We don't know how Teresa feels. Okay, but there is some emotional distance because it's not personal. It's impersonal to say that Sally's heart was broken. Now, if you were reading it from Sally's perspective, and she said, me and Teresa were best friends, but then she moved away and I never heard from her again. I don't know why. What did I do to make her not want to be friends with me anymore? I'm so heartbroken over this. There's a whole lot more emotion in that type of writing. So limited is when you know, when the narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of one character, but that's it. Just that one character. Then you have third person omniscient. Okay? I don't know about you guys, but I've heard the word omniscient in church. And I'm always kind of surprised by how many people haven't. But I've heard it a lot to describe God. Okay? God is all knowing. So an omniscient narrator knows everything about everybody. Okay? Notice that these two comments are the same. The narrator does not participate in the action. Narrator does not refer to himself or herself. In Omniscient, the narrator knows the thoughts and feelings of all the characters. So when you read it, you get insight into all the characters' thoughts. Okay, this is probably the most common of the two, third person limited and third person omniscient. Okay, and just as a quick reminder, your story that you're reading for homework is first person, so we'll have to talk about the third person point of views some more in class. This is the chart that you will create. Remember that an inference is an educated guess. So look at the places mentioned in the story. What are the important details that you need to write about them from the story? And then based on those details, what can you guess about the setting? In class, we will talk about this together, or you guys will talk about it together. I want to hear what you have to say about what the setting is. Be sure on your chart to include your final inference, which should be a time and place. So think about whether this story happened in the past, whether it's happening in the present, whether it's happening in the future. If you have something more specific than that, write it down. You're going to need to come up with your place, and then we will determine what the real setting is together in class.